Anxiety in my long-range Model 3. I want to tell you a little bit about my charging habits and experience with range anxiety specifically. So first off, when I bought this car, I specifically wanted the long-range model because it goes 310 miles. My former car was all gasoline, and it got about 300 miles on the tank. So for me, the 310 miles was like, all right, I won't have to adjust my lifestyle or anything significant to accommodate being electric. That was really important to me. So we installed a charger at our house, which, by the way, I'm going to record another video at some point. We live in a condo, not a single family home. We do not have a garage, so I had to negotiate and do some stuff with the condo association to be able to install the charging station. And I know that's not everybody who's a Tesla owner, but I will record that video because I think a lot of people will find it interesting. Anyway, so we have a charger outside our house, and the interesting thing is my office is less than a quarter mile from my house. I did do that on purpose. But anyway, so my friends were making fun of me at one point. They said you got a car that goes 310 miles and you drive 1 mile to work. But as I mentioned in previous videos, a couple times a year, about 6 to 8 typically, we will travel a long distance between 300 to 400 plus miles. So I wanted to have that long range capacity so that we wouldn't have to have a different car and just have this be our city driver. I wanted this to be my daily, all the time car. So anyway, that was kind of my thinking going into it. And for the most part, we haven't had any issues. I'll talk about the times we have not had issues in a moment, but I do want to mention the two specific times that I have experienced range anxiety, and both of them were to a degree at least self-inflicted, but it's real. So the first time was going up to visit my uncle in Connecticut. So going from Maryland to Connecticut, it was somewhere between 350, 400 miles, and for the most part was no issue. The problem was when we got to the house, there really wasn't a supercharger that was conveniently close by. There was one about 15 minutes away, um, and this was really the first time in about, I guess it's been about 2 months at this point. Wow. But either way, it was my first time in roughly 2 months where I really felt like I had to go out of my way to charge the car because we were driving up. We By the way, one thing that some of you guys may be familiar with is that the cars charge faster when the battery is more drained, and they charge slower the more the battery gets filled up. That is a specific design to protect the batteries and make them last longer, which is certainly what you want. But either way, so our last supercharger stop, we only had to stop for about 20 minutes to get to where we needed to be. And if we wanted to charge the battery up to full at the last supercharger before we got to my uncle's house, it would have taken about 35 to 45 minutes additional time, which we decided not to do. So we went on and continued on to my uncle's house. And the battery, I forget now, it was a couple weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, when this happened. So I forget now exactly how much battery I had or whatever, but I remember that we would not have been able to make it at least comfortably. I don't like to go below 10% battery, even on a long trip. That makes me nervous. But also, I never like to drive my car with the gas light on or yeah. So either way, shoot, where was I going? So I had to make a decision at that point. We made the decision to not charge the extra 35 to 45 minutes on the way to my uncle's house. I don't remember. I think we could have made it to the supercharger, but I wouldn't have had enough time comfortably to get back to the supercharger. So what I ended up doing was early in that morning, I woke up and I drove out in a different direction, and it was about a 15 minute drive out to a supercharger that was in the opposite direction but closer by. And I charged up there for about 20 minutes, and then I went back to my uncle's house, and it was fine. So that was the first time ever, after about 2 months, that I felt like I really had to go out of my way to charge the car and keep a comfortable state of charge. The second time, and I might end up making this the thumbnail for the video, I got my car all the way down to 1% battery remaining as I pulled into my driveway. That one was a little bit nerve wracking for sure. But again, that one, I'll own it. I was 100% self inflicted. So I had driven out about 2.5 miles to go do, or excuse me, 2.5 miles, 2.5 hours of driving, about 100 miles, I guess. Uh, out to go do some work, and then I had to come back and do a physical therapy appointment. Uh, and on the way, I had 100% been planning. I already knew there was a supercharger that I've stopped at before. It's on the route, and I was planning on stopping there for about 20 minutes, and that would have been perfect. But I left the work late, and I didn't want to be late to my physical therapy appointment. So I just made the decision. I was like, you know what? I have enough juice. We don't need the supercharger. We'll get to the PT appointment without stopping, and I did, and I made it there with a reasonable amount of charge left. But then when I was leaving the PT appointment, I put in my home address, and I realized, oh man, uh, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. I think I put in my home address, and it told me I was gonna make it with 3% battery, and I was again, right? I was like, I can do that, but that's the equivalent of driving with the gas light on. I'd rather not. So I asked around. Actually, at the PT appointment, the lady told me that at a grocery store had installed a charger. So I was like, great. Pulled it up on my Tesla. Some of you guys might know there's a button you can push. It'll show you all the chargers in the area. One of them, by the way, was very close by at an IKEA. And I don't know about you, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I just loathe IKEA. I'd rather not be there, even if I needed the charge. I'd just rather not. So I decided to go to this unmarked location. My physical therapist, on good word, told me there was a charger. And there wasn't. I drove around the parking lot. I even ended up going inside, and there was no charger. So my therapist, for all the things she does right, messed up on that one, I suppose. Hope she doesn't watch this video. Uh, but either way, so at that point, I'd already used up some of my battery driving around looking for this charger, and I had to make the decision. I said I could either go to IKEA and charge up there for a little bit, or I can get home and make it with exactly 1% battery remaining. And I loathe IKEA, so I decided to just go straight home. So it was funny as I pulled into my driveway, the battery went from 2% to 1%, which, by the way, was still about 30 miles. It wasn't like I was going to be stranded on the side of the road, but it's just like having the gas light on makes you a little nervous and uncomfortable. But anyway, those were both of my two experiences having range anxiety with the Tesla Model 3. That said, it's been 2 months, and those are the only two times. Every other time has been really convenient, and we've taken some long trips. We took the longest one was a 14-hour drive from Maryland to Atlanta, Georgia, and that one we had no issue whatsoever. We've taken it to Pennsylvania, we've taken it to upstate New York, up near, excuse me, Niagara Falls. We've taken it to Connecticut, as I mentioned, and we've had no issues. Especially for me personally, I can drive for about 4 or 5 hours without stopping reasonably comfortably. But after about 4 or 5 hours, I'm ready to stop the car and get out and stretch my legs for a while. And when I drive for that length of time, I like to stop for a good 20, 30, 40 minutes and just move, because I get uncomfortable sitting in the same exact position for too long. So for me, to be able to drive for 4 or 5 hours and then pull over, plug in the car, and stretch my legs for 20, 30, 40 minutes, that's exactly what I'd want to be doing anyway. So all I have to do is strategically plan my stop at a charger. That's it. For my wife, she likes to stop every 2 hours or so and get out and use the bathroom or whatever. So it was funny on our trip to Connecticut together, the car was telling us we only had to stop one time. By the way, it was about a 5.5 hour drive for us. So the car was telling us we only had to stop one time and stop for about 30 minutes. But what we ended up doing to accommodate my wife was we stopped 3 times so that she could get out and use the bathroom or whatever she needed to do. And every time we just stopped at a charger and juiced up, and then we made it to my uncle's house, no problem whatsoever. Same exact thing happened on the way to Atlanta. That was actually, we did that one within 1 week of owning the car. I wanted to take it out and really play with it and visit some family down there and show it off in the process. But man, when I'm a professional YouTuber, I will stop saying huh? Sorry about that. Anyway, so that was our first trip ever. And at that time, we really weren't comfortable with the car. And to be honest, I didn't trust it then as much as I do now. I really do trust the car at this point. It knows what it's doing in many cases better than I do. But it was telling me when to stop, and I was like, I'm not comfortable. I want to stop more. So we ended up stopping a lot more frequently than even we needed to, and we ended up stopping a lot longer than we needed to. on that trip to Atlanta. But that was our first time, and after that, we just more or less do what the car says, or stop for convenience and just sync up our stops with the supercharger. But either way, so that's been my experience with range anxiety. If you are considering buying a Tesla, again, it is certainly going to depend on your personal situation. What kind of area you live in? Are you in a city or a really rural area? It's going to depend on how much you drive, of course. So, of course, you got to pick out what's right for you. But my personal experience has been, especially the long range model, or don't drive SUVs personally. I know the mid range model goes 260 miles on a charge. Maybe that's what you're used to in your car. I don't know. Either way, my experience has been that if you get something that more or less matches up with what you're used to currently, you genuinely do not need to change your driving habits or anything really whatsoever. I will admit that to a degree, my habits have changed a bit, uh, but not because I've had to. Just it's a new car, and I don't know. I don't know. Sorry about that one. Um, Either way, nothing significant has changed. I certainly haven't felt at all like I've had to change how I drive or how I plan my day. None of that has been necessary whatsoever. And more than anything, I've been really comfortable in the car. Even the two times that I've pushed it, I haven't felt super inconvenienced or super stressed about running out of charge on the side of the road. So that's been my experience. I hope that's been helpful to you. I would love to hear, by the way, in the comments if there's anything specific that you want to hear about, any videos that you'd like me to record. This is not my main job. This is just something I'm doing for fun. So I'm happy to add any value that I can whatsoever. Let me know, by the way, if you enjoyed this video, if this answered any questions, or if you've had a similar or a vastly different experience yourself if you're driving electric. And then the last thing is that if you are an entrepreneur, check out some of my other videos. I run a business focused on helping entrepreneurs scale their business and grow, and I've got some free training videos on the same channel here. Like I said, this is just for fun, but if you're interested in that, feel free to check it out. Aside from that, thanks for watching, and I'll